Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Curiosity Monkey podcast. Today I'm joined by Holly. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Recently came across a video where there were these monkeys which were being employed or used by farmers to pick coconuts, and these coconuts were being sold for profit all around the world, including in the UK. And this is quite interesting because, of course, we use animals, and we have used animals for a long, long time, including horses, different cattle, for instance. We've used them for their work, for human gain. But we haven't really seen much of the use of different animals such as monkeys. So my first thoughts on this is, well, monkeys are very intelligent animals. Is this ethical? Is it less ethical than using, say, different farmyard animals such as a horse? Do they enjoy doing this? Do they really have a choice? Probably not, realistically. And so, yeah, humans have exploited animals for the labour for thousands and thousands of years. But this somewhat gives an unsettling feeling. And here on the Curiosity Monkey podcast, of course, we like monkeys because, you know, monkeys are the symbol of kind of human nature, curiosity. They're very inquisitive and they're quite human-like, pretty similar to us in a lot of respects. So kind of the idea of monkeys being used as slaves almost is, it feels wrong in many ways. But we're going to have a look at how different is this to, say, using horses.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of dive deeper into this, especially about the ethical sides, because of course, as you mentioned, we've been using animals for a long time to help humans with their work. And there are obviously lots of different animals that are being used by humans, whether that is for work or whether it is for food. So, well, my mind springs to how pigs are really intelligent, but we are killing them for food. So how is it different being able to kill such an intelligent creature versus making an intelligent creature, the monkey, work for us?
Yeah, because we use animal labour particularly to save our time and energy and increase food harvests or whatever. Obviously, you don't really need the monkey in this setting. Like, they're just picking coconuts. Humans can pick coconuts. But I guess we should start by looking at this case in a bit more detail. So, who are these monkeys? There are loads of different species of monkeys. Where is this occurring? Kind of what's going on here? So the monkeys being used are pig-tailed macaques and the medium-sized monkeys. The males are about 50 to 60 centimetres long, weighing around 5 to 12 kilos. Females are a little bit smaller at 38 to 48 centimetres long, with 4.5 to 6 kilograms. And they're brown monkeys, some lighter patches. Yeah, if you look up a photo of them, you'll see what they look like, and it's your standard monkey. Quite smallish, medium kind of size monkey. They have a characteristic short pig-like tail, hence they're called the pig-tailed macaque. And I guess the key reason why they're used here is, well, A, they live in the location where coconuts grow, so this is useful. If you want a monkey that can pick coconuts, having them live in a similar area to where the coconuts are is probably necessary.
And I'm guessing the other reason is that they're so light, they're quite small, so that they can climb up to these great heights, picking the coconuts, and also they have a good sense of balance, so they can go up where it's probably less safe for humans to do so without falling off.
Yes, yeah, they're very skilled climbers. So in the videos, I encourage you to look them up. There's actually several, and this has been going on for a while, so I'm actually surprised this is the first time I've seen it, like in the last month or so. Yeah, they're basically jumping through the trees, tree to tree, picking these coconuts. I guess also these monkeys are endangered, which is pretty standard, honestly, for monkeys.
Not that they should be, but
Yeah, they just are endangered, and this is occurring in Thailand and in some of the surrounding countries, and there's actually been quite a lot of backlash over the years on this, but things don't really seem to be changing. In the UK, a lot of supermarkets stopped selling coconut produce picked by monkeys, but in Thailand it seems that these monkeys are still being used to pick coconuts, but there's still a lot of backlash trying to stop that, but it's not working.
I guess it's also quite tricky to know exactly when a monkey has been used to pick the coconuts. You know, what companies are buying them from these farmers, and where exactly they're being sold. They might not be clear about how they've been picked, and even the companies buying the coconuts to sell on in the UK, they might not be aware of it either.
Well, there's probably a reasonable chance that in some time in your life that you've eaten a coconut that's been handled by a monkey. It's quite an interesting thought, but yeah, I think apparently the regulation is pretty relaxed in terms of, like, you're not meant to use the monkeys to pick the coconuts, but as long as you say you're not doing it, no one comes out and checks. So these farmers say that they're not using monkey, no one's checking, and turns out a lot of them are. And yeah, it is easy to imagine why monkeys are used for coconut picking, because coconuts, I don't know if you've seen a coconut tree, but they are very tall. In fact, they can reach around 30 meters tall, which is actually very, very tall. And monkeys, obviously better climbers than humans, quite a lot better. If you see the videos, yeah, they're leaping up these trees. And so they can just pick more coconuts per day. In fact, these monkeys can pick, actually guess how many coconuts one of these monkeys can pick per day on average.
25?
A little bit higher than that.
50?
In fact, they can pick around 1,000 coconuts per day.
1,000? Oh.
I guess how many humans can pick?
I'm going to go back to my base answer of 50 then.
Quite close. 80 coconuts.
Mm.
And because of the sheer vertical scale of coconut trees, it's understandable that a human can only pick 80. That's only like 8 an hour if you're working a standard 8-hour day.
So how would they get up to the top of the trees?
Well, the humans?
Yes.
I guess they just use a harness and rope. But it's still quite dangerous, like, for humans. Well, they're not great natural climbers. Sure, humans can climb, but the monkeys are just so much better at it. And also, imagine you're a farmer, you'd probably rather, well, the monkey's better, but also you don't want to sacrifice yourself or put yourself in danger when trying to pick these coconuts such high up.
Yep, and the monkeys are obviously, well, nearly free labour apart from any rewards or incentives you're giving them.
Yeah.
Then they're extremely cost effective.
As we'll see in a second, these monkeys do not want to be employed in most cases, and yeah, they're essentially slaves. They can't really get out of this. But how long has this been going on? Well, there have been reports of this happening consistently over the past 100 years, probably more realistically. And as I said before, the Thai government has said it is stopping monkey labour, but exploitation continues to occur. And a PETA report in mid-2024 revealed that there is no oversight over coconut farmers, and many simply just lie, saying they're not using monkey labour. So little is being done to stop it. So how does this work? Because you obviously have to get from a point where you have a monkey and then train it up somehow so that it does what you want, essentially. And well, it turns out monkey schools for monkeys, have been discovered where the macaques are trained to pick fruit. And there are also other monkey schools where they're trained to do other things, such as riding bikes as entertainment for humans, but that's probably a different episode. And these monkeys are usually illegally captured as babies by baiting them in the wild and trapping them essentially. And then they're separated from their mothers at a very young age. And the monkeys at monkey school are kept on a very tight leash, so that it's challenging to move. And they seem to not be kept in the best conditions, with many of these monkeys not given adequate shelter. And this is obviously forced. The monkeys have no say in the matter, and it doesn't seem that they like this.
No, I don't think I'd be happy about being kept against my will either.
No, because if you think, like, these monkeys are actually pretty similar to humans in a lot of ways. They likely think like us and feel like us, and so it's quite unsettling to think that they are treated like slaves. And when the monkeys are not being trained or working, they are kept in small cages, essentially imprisoned. And yeah, this is obviously concerning, as just due to the intelligence of the creatures. And then once the monkeys have graduated monkey school, farmers who then pick coconuts will then buy these monkeys for use, and typically the mean age is around 2.5 years, but there is a large variation, some much older, some much younger. And these monkeys can be working for up to 15 years for these farmers.
So is it the farmers themselves who go and get the monkeys and train them themselves, or are the schools independent?
Well, I think sometimes it is the farmers who directly go out and capture the monkeys for use, but often the farmers just buy them from separate monkey schools who are just there to train the monkeys up for this purpose. So what does the welfare look like of these monkeys? There's a paper on this in the journal Applied Animal Behaviour Science, and it found that only 2/5 of the working macaques were given a good enough standard of welfare. And most of these animals are in fear or distress. And this is often shown with the monkeys kind of lashing out with aggression. And this aggression was dealt with punishment. So beating them, removing canines, so their teeth. And yeah, these animals often not in a very good state, working long hours and frequently showing signs of exhaustion. So I guess the question is, well, humans have used animal labour for centuries. What is different here with using monkey labour? So horses, donkeys, dogs, for instance, have all been used for various tasks. Say horses pulling a plough or just being ridden. Dogs for hunting. And yeah, so these animals have been used for a long, long time. But these animals are domesticated. They're not tamed. So taming is when you basically condition the animal to prevent it from feeling the need to avoid humans. But domestication, on the other hand, occurs over long time periods, and it's essentially genetic. So when the change, not because the animal simply gets used to people, but has evolved to be closer to humans. So it's multi-generational. Dogs are some of the first animals to get domesticated, some 15,000 to 30,000 years ago. And humans use dogs for hunting, because dogs obviously have an amazing sense of smell. They are fast, they are strong, and just great for hunting / protection. And what do the dogs get from this? Well, the dogs used humans for food and for shelter. So wolves, back a long time ago, that were not so shy for humans would be at an advantage, because they would come closer to the camp, they would eat some food, and they would be an advantage to the other wolves who did not do this. And so you get natural selection for dogs now that are close to humans. And now dogs are used for labour in drug searches, therapy, and blind dogs. military or police dogs, guard dogs, probably still for hunting in some places, and a lot of the time, the majority of the time, they're not used for labour, but they're just pets. Horses, they have been used for transportation, hunting, and the horse benefits from protection from the humans. And they are, again, domesticated. But in the case of the monkey, the pig-tailed macaque, they are not domesticated, but they seem to be tamed. So they have not evolved over many, many years for them to be closer to humans, but they've simply just got used to the presence of humans because monkeys, by nature, are intelligent and adaptable species. So where do we draw the line? What is ethical and what isn't? So when watching these monkey picking videos and looking at the comments, many are saying, this isn't that bad, it's just the same as using horses. But I think there are some fundamental differences. Well, firstly, monkeys are not domesticated. They have not evolved to be around humans constantly, and they are wild animals. Just this fact means they are not meant to be around humans all the time, and it's quite unsettling for them to be detained like this. Additionally, the methods used to train these monkeys and just the general treatment of the animals is unethical no matter what in many cases. You wouldn't be particularly happy with people chaining up dogs or horses on a very short lead constantly and abusing them, beating them, pulling out their teeth when they did bad. You wouldn't be happy no matter what, even if they were domesticated. Also, monkeys are very intelligent animals and they are so aware of what's going on around them, so they may not have been evolved to be around humans, but because they're so intelligent, they just feel like us, so they know what's going on around them, they feel detained, and that can be basically terrible for them. On the other hand, you've got dogs, which are also very intelligent creatures. Many years of evolution have caused them not only to be used to humans, but love them / want to be around them. And so dogs, they do not feel the stress from being around humans always. They want to be around humans. So dogs, as pets or even working animals, are quite happy working for humans. They're quite happy doing what the human commands. Dogs really seem to enjoy this. In fact, they seem to thrive off human direction. And this cannot be said for monkeys. Also, working dogs are hopefully trained in a non-abusive way, which does definitely make a difference here. For other working animals like horses, it's a bit less clear on how much they like it. Some do, some don't, from my research and understanding here. But horses are very much used to being around humans, and so if treated well, they seem to not have much against it.
I think it's also very interesting, as you've mentioned, the ways in which these animals are being trained, regardless of whether they're monkeys or dogs or horses. I think we've got to look at if it's, positive reinforcement, so rewarding positive behaviours that you want to encourage, or if you're using, scare tactics, punishing them when they perform badly.
Yeah, it seems that most of the time they are being punished rather than rewarded for good behaviour. So if you're training a creature, then if the creature does badly, just punishing it for its mistake instead of giving it a reward if it does well. And this brings us to the next part. Are there any acceptable uses of monkey labour or uses of just other non-domesticated animals? So firstly, I'd like to talk a bit about animal testing. And so monkeys and other primates have been used in animal testing for a long time. Around 65,000 non-human primates are used per year for testing of various medical and non-medical products in the US alone. And primates are used because they're very similar to humans. So when you're testing products, say that drugs, just testing the effects of different diseases, or testing different products on animals, you want to basically find out what effect is this going to have. What are the negative effects, are the side effects? Does this do what you want it to do? Say for a drug, you're testing, is it effective? Well, monkeys and other primates are very similar to humans, so you get the best response, or you get a response which is most likely going to be very similar in humans. Mice are also very commonly used, but they are less similar, so obviously there's problems there.
What exactly are mice used?
There are a few reasons why mice are used quite often. Firstly, although monkeys are very, very similar to humans, mice actually have some quite similar metabolic processes to us, like or the way the body's mechanisms behave is quite similar in some ways. Also, they're small. It's quite easy to kind of keep them, and they have short lifespans and they reproduce very quickly, so allows you to do a lot of testing very quickly. And also they're a lot more less intelligent than some other animals, so the ethics around it is less of a problem, but it's still there. And as you'd expect of these monkeys, there are long-lasting effects of doing, say, drug testing on these animals. And because these monkeys have very similar brains to us, and they likely think and feel in a very similar way, there are many attempts to try and reduce the number of primates used in research. Also, after research is complete, a lot of these animals are just killed. In fact, in 1997, the UK banned research involving great apes. So these are they're not all primates. Great apes are some subsection here, so chimpanzees, for instance. However, other primates are still used.
And just out of curiosity, how would a pig-tailed macaque be classified?
So the pig-tailed macaques are old world monkeys, and these are the monkeys that live around Asia. And because these monkeys, they're not great apes, so the pig-tailed macaque in this case probably could be tested on. And great apes are not used for animal testing in the UK anymore because they're just thought to be more intelligent than the other, say, monkeys, and they're very human-like in a lot of respects, even more than just other primates. And in fact, 79% of primates used in the UK are macaques, so similar to the macaques used to pick coconuts here. And every year the UK uses 3,000.
I think it would be really interesting to kind of compare people's ethical views on kind of the intelligence of the animal versus their kind of feeling of pain. Is it more ethical to kind of test on the monkeys that are potentially less intelligent but still have the same feeling of pain? Would that not be just as unethical?
Yeah, so I guess here it's what makes something more or less ethical to do. So here you're obviously putting these creatures through a process which is painful, and at the end most of the time they're just discarded, just killed when they're done. And yeah, so this painful process, intelligent animals probably quite aware of what's going on. They're not happy to be in this situation. Is it just the intelligence that matters for the ethics? Because intelligence, they may have a good understanding of what's going on, and they may not just feel the pain but be aware of the pain and be able to anticipate what's causing it, causing great mental distress or other factors that contribute.
For me, I think it is a really difficult question to answer, but in my opinion, that regardless of the type of animal that is being tested on, if they can feel pain and if these processes are causing them pain, then I don't think that that is ethical, regardless of whether they can understand where the pain is coming from, so having this intelligence, or whether they are not intelligent, so don't know what is causing them this pain. I think pain is pain, and it's still unethical.
Yeah. I'd say there's probably different levels. I don't think I'd treat a highly intelligent monkey the same level as a mouse, but yeah, I definitely understand. It's, in both cases, it's not particularly ethical, and both animals definitely don't want to be part of this process. However, though, the ethics gets a bit more complicated when you realise that the drugs produced from this testing save millions and millions of lives per year. So is it acceptable to use a few thousand primates every year to test life-saving drugs that save millions and millions of lives? So you could argue it's all about the greater good, because these monkeys are sacrificed essentially to produce many drugs and developments in technology, essentially in drug technology, that this is an acceptable use, acceptable trade-off between the monkeys suffer, but potentially you get a net benefit. You could also argue the other way, that you have no business using monkeys for our drug testing, or any other animal for that respect.
What alternatives do you think could be used instead of animals for this testing?
Well, obviously you can culture cells and tissues now, and those cells can be used to at least test the toxicity of drugs to some respect. But well, at this stage, you cannot do that for a drug trial, because it's just, you need the whole body system to see how it's going to respond to that drug. But potentially with future developments, there may no longer be a need for primates and drug testing. And obviously this is the ideal. I wouldn't say anyone really wants to use highly intelligent animals, or any animals that feel pain, to test drugs, because they don't want to be part of it. So if there is an alternative, that's great. Everyone would want to use that. But at the same time, you can definitely understand why other animals are used for testing, because you're producing life-saving drugs.
I think for pharmaceutical companies, I think a big part is their profit margins. So they are going to go with the kind of easiest and cheapest solution. So I think in the future it's about making these alternatives easily accessible to all companies, and ensuring that they have an incentive to use these alternatives.
And I think with that, we end this episode of the Curiosity Monkey podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it. We discussed some interesting ideas on using primates with intelligence levels fairly similar to us for our own use, basically our own gain. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Holly, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was really interesting.
And we'll see you in the next one. If you have any questions, then you can email us at thecuriositymonkey1@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at thecuriositymonkey, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.